about it. Right, it's all live.
Okay. Are you taking it that I've been appointed the chair for this meeting only?
Yes, I think in the chair's absence, that if everyone's happy, for Councillor Wimble to chair for this particular meeting only.
I am.
Okay. If there are no other nominations to be chair, then came as a bit of a surprise. According to this, the next agenda item is to appoint a vice chair for district vice chair for this meeting. Are there any nominations?
I'd like to nominate Councillor Alan Martin, please.
And I'm happy to second that.
Okay. Are you okay with that, Alan?
Yeah, that's good, David.
Superb. Okay then. Right. Apologies for absence.
Do we need to vote on the Do we need to vote on the vice chair? Jake, not quite sure how that
A
works.
show of hands will do.
Yeah. Okay.
Great, thank you.
Right. Any apologies for absence other than Mary Laws by the looks of things?
Thank you, Chair. No, just Councillor Laws.
Any declarations of interest? Okay. Can we vote on the minutes of the last meeting held on the 17th of February this year? I can't vote on this as I obviously wasn't at that meeting.
Yeah, agreed.
Can I just ask for a small amendment to the minutes? Where are we? So where we were talking about the active travel fund, item 45, the second last bullet point where it says a point surrounding the current bus stop. If we can make that clearer in the minutes that we're referring to the bus stop outside of the Harvey Grammar School, just so it's a bit clearer in the minutes, that'd be very good, please. Thank you.
Okay. I can't see there being any problem with that. Right. Next up then, item number 6, an update from Stagecoach. Are you there, Joel?
I am. I've got some slides I can share, only a few. Now, we use Teams rather than Zoom, so let's see if I can get this working. Right. I can only see Polly. So Polly, if you can see my screen, can you nod? Great.
Yeah, yeah, all good.
Thank you. Okay, I won't take long. Well, thanks for inviting me. It's been quite a bumpy 4 years, 5 years. So our new financial year started in May. And it's been a relatively torrid time across Stagecoach Southeast. So those of you that have had me on before will know how the constitution of Stagecoach works. Stagecoach has been around for 40 plus years. There are 18 versions of me dotted around the United Kingdom, Scotland, Wales, England. Stagecoach is the biggest bus provider in the UK. One of the big owning groups you'll know about: Go Ahead, Arriva, First Group, Abellio, as was now UK Transport. And then there are smaller organisations too that also do a good job and help keep the map covered. Now, the way that Stagecoach works is that we are devolved organisations. So I am the statutory director for the East Kent Road Car Company trading as Stagecoach South East, and I have a separate P&L. I have to make sure that my statutory duties are discharged. So I have a lawful requirement as the statutory director, and I'm the managing director, and I have a team that work for me. And that's our area there, as you can see in the middle. We did have 7 depots, we now have 6, for much publicised reasons that you guys are all very aware of. So as we look ahead into 2025, 2026, and we've just finished period 2 of that 13-period year, we have 332 buses, just over 1,300 employees. We're forecast to cover about 16 million passenger miles this year, with 34 million unique passenger journeys, although not unique passengers, 6 depots, and we have finally managed, with the exception of one garage in Eastbourne, to build back a sustainable network that means we're not fearful of not being able to run any buses for anybody anywhere. So that was looking like it might be the case for a while. I didn't tell anybody because I didn't want to panic anybody, but fortunately we are now in a position where we are stable. We have a sustainable baseline, and fundamentally that means that our operating costs, which have exploded exponentially, as have many transport and non-transport organisations, charities, non-charities, commercial enterprises, over the last couple of years, with what we've seen in terms of cost of living, we've got ourselves onto that steady state, which is incredibly encouraging. What isn't encouraging is some of the things we've had to do to get there. It's been really torrid. I left the railway in 2019 after 20 years as a railway man, as an operations director, and latterly as the deputy managing director for C2C Railway running from Fenchurch Street to Southend, and to join the bus industry because once upon a time my mum and dad were missionaries and Christian evangelists, and although I'm not a big churchy guy, I am kind of conditioned for a bit of a social aim. I don't want to give my entire career to things that aren't doing the right things for society. And I Googled the value of bus to society in 2019 when I was headhunted for this role, and realised if you got it right, you could really shift the dial for the poor, the needy, the old, the young, the infirm. So I joined, had a good look at what to do, wrote a 5-year strategic plan about changing the way that we look after communities, launched it in January 2020 and ran into COVID in February 2020. And always will remain slightly resentful that I never ever had a chance to have a go at it. So all we've really been able to do since then is survive, try and re-baseline. What I would say is, as I look ahead now, I'm more enthused than I've ever been, because I feel like I'm right back at the beginning of that chapter that I joined to do. It's more difficult now, and as you know, the context is challenging, but I feel like we've got half a chance now. So we had to do some rubbish things. We had to merge Dover and Folkestone in garages, which is the worst thing I've ever had to do in my 26-year transport career, and I never want to have to do anything like that again. Off the back of costs going up 34%, but revenue either being capped by a very well-intended but not particularly helpful for us in that moment fare cap, or the fact that concessionary passengers had got nowhere near back to what they were pre-COVID, or at the time neither had our commercial network. But we've had a really decent run of it with the local authority. Kent County Council have been really good. So have East Sussex County Council. The other 17 versions of me do not extol the same virtue of their local authorities often. Some of them have got lots of local authorities and some are good, some aren't. We've been quite fortunate that we've had some really good locally minded transport colleagues in the LTAs that have really helped try and drive things forward. So we've got back to a position where the good news is we're not running at a loss anymore at an operating company level. We do have garages that don't cover their operating costs, but in the round we're kind of there or thereabouts. The next thing to do is try and get ourselves to a position where we can start to really invest and grow. So in terms of this little chart, I just wanted to share with you because it kind of gives an indication of some of the things that really matter. to Folkestone and Hythe community. So the one I'm really happy about is the bottom right-hand chart there, which is our lost mileage. So the lost mileage chart that you see there, we had two really horrible spikes. One was the national driver shortage after COVID, when central government wrote to all of the bus drivers and asked them if they wanted to be lorry drivers. And a lot of them said, oh, yes, please, that looks nice. What a lot of money that is. And left us panicked and wringing our hands, desperately trying to recruit. We're quite lucky in the Southeast at Stagecoach because we've worked really hard to try and treat our people well. We have the lowest level of driver turnover out of any of the 18 Stagecoach operating companies. So fewer people leave Stagecoach Southeast than anywhere else. And we also have recruited really well. So as I sit here right now, of the 1,000 drivers we need, we've got 1,047. So we're over established, which has a slight impact on your cost base, but also means you don't drop mileage. We lost those 50 drivers with the Dover Folkestone merger that we hadn't wanted to do, and we didn't make any compulsory redundancies, and we tried to make it possible for everybody to stay, but some people took redundancy, as was their right to do so. And we had to work hard to fill those vacancy gaps. But as you see that right over in the bottom right-hand side of that bottom right-hand chart, for the last 7 months, we have not had anywhere near even 1% lost mileage. So we're generally losing about 0.5% of our published mileage in the Folkestone area. And broadly, all of that is as a result of traffic congestion, street works, road works. So the stuff that's in my gift to make sure I don't cancel buses on, we don't tend to cancel buses for anymore. Not blaming anybody for that. It is the nature of the world in which we live in, where the utility companies are unilaterally allowed to come and just dig up the roads and not tell anybody about it. But then they've got their own commercial challenges, and I'll tell you a little bit about what we're doing with that shortly. The bottom left-hand chart is the punctuality in terms of what runs on time and what runs late. And I am really pleased that where that January network change has been done by Emma and our team, we've put about 5% on the moving annual average in terms of punctuality. So the majority of our services are now well into the 80s in terms of arriving at their published points within 5 minutes of their advertised time, which is the same metric the railway uses. Not great. As somebody that's a performance practitioner by trade, I'm not a massive fan of knocking around in the 80s. However, when the majority of the things that you are late for are not within your gift, the traffic commissioner exempts those for you, and the traffic commissioner is very aware of the things that cause us to make buses late, and it is the same manifestation as every bus company everywhere, big, small or not. So that's great from a operating license perspective, but fundamentally dreadful for a customer because they don't care whose fault it is. They want their bus to turn up on time. So, there's more to be done there. Top left, top right is our patronage, and this is in the kind of Folkestone area and into Hythe. And fundamentally, for all the ups and downs and the singing and the shouting, we are currently moving a daily and periodic average slightly more than we did a couple of years ago in the Folkestone area. What's been interesting to see, and I'm quite encouraged by, is that right-hand graph, the orange line there. We're starting finally to see concessionary passengers begin to trend back up again. They've been stagnant for a long time, and our concessionary passengers and industry concessionary passengers kind of capped out at around about 70-75% of pre-COVID numbers. Now, there's lots of reasons for that, lots of changing passenger habits because of things like discovery of social media and online food shopping and Teams calls and things that impacted everybody. But also there was quite highly publicised perceived risk spoken about a lot during COVID about the dangers of travelling on public transport, both railway, bus, coach, and it had a significantly detrimental impact on people's trust. Ironically, they were probably the safest and cleanest places to be. given the amount of additional cleaning that was going on. However, we are starting to see that flush out the system and people are beginning to come back. Across the industry, again, not unique to Stagecoach South East, certainly not unique to Folkestone. In January of this year, we saw a drop off on commercial patronage and commercial passenger numbers as the £2 fare cap came to an end. And we had a really good go at doing our own fares to try and keep as many people that had come across on the £2 fare trial. So those of you that use the bus will know that to travel on Stagecoach South East is now, we've got rid of our return fares, we've simplified it, and to travel on a single basis, it's based on distance, and it's £1.80, £2.60 or £3, and £3 is still the government capped £3 scheme that's recently been announced to be extended well past where we thought it would be, which is good news. So, you know, the message there for Folkestone is pretty encouraging. We are ready to build back. We want to work with the local community to decide where to do that. The local authority has been incredibly supportive and helpful. The one negative thing, although it's not entirely negative in its own right, is the levelling up project around what was Folkestone bus station, because there are some real pros from that, and it will be a lovely aesthetic environment, but it is inadvertently putting quite a significant amount of cost into running the buses, and we're not quite sure how much yet. But once that has taken place, and it's been put back, as you'll probably know, so September the 21st, when we recut all of our duties and our rosters to compensate for the fact that we can't any longer have breaks at Folkestone. So if you're on a break from one of our 100 series, you're probably going to have to drive all the way back to Ashford to have a break. There's a lot of dead mileage in that. There's a lot of cost implications in that. So we'll have to review that in the round. Equally, there are other benefits from doing this. So we'll have a good look at that. But meanwhile, you know, looking to see what more we can do in terms of serving the community now that we're in a decent place operationally and we are sustainable financially. Because fundamentally, you know, the next one, I won't dwell on this too much. This is a snapshot so you can see the significant challenges that we and all the other bus companies face in terms of this huge ramp up of roadworks and street work. And for those of you that aren't necessarily aware of the difference, because not everybody is, and some people that should aren't, a present company accepted, because it's quite a detailed thing. Roadworks are essentially looking after the carriageway, and they are generally looked after by the local highways authority or the National Highways Authority. But from in this conversation, Kent County Council will look after roadworks, and I have to say they're pretty well done. They're well planned, they're well coordinated. We are engaged, involved. In fact, we won the National Transport Award Gold Medal for the teamwork that our local control team undertake with Kent County Council in terms of the planning and the facilitation of roadworks. The same cannot be said for street works. Street works are where utility companies access their physical assets in terms of renewals, emergency access because there's a gas leak or somebody's broadband has gone down. So just recently, Susan and I, Catherine's our commercial director, Susan's my head of business transformation, hosted a workshop at Ashford International Hotel with SGN, UK Power Networks, Kent County Council, another smaller operator, new venture from the Maidstone area. And we spent the whole day pretending we were one company, and how would we do this if we were one company whose strategic pillars were running buses, renewing the physical asset for the gas infrastructure, and renewing the physical asset for the UK Power Networks infrastructure. And it was eye-opening, the difference that we could do if it was more joined up. So we've got some brilliant one-offs and longer-term strategic approaches we can take collectively to try and help this. Because those of you that aren't aware, utility companies can come and dig up the road without telling the local authority until they have dug it up. So as long as you tell the local authority within 2 hours of you digging up the road, that's okay, as long as it's an emergency. And such as the fine system, even if it's an emergency and you pretend it's an emergency and you get found that it wasn't and you get fined, currently that is £80. If you think about the commercial risk and loss to a customer in terms of you wanting to make sure that Mrs. Miggins has got her broadband back up and running, you will take that hit. No one's thinking about the road user, no one's thinking about the car driver. And you won't hear me extol the virtues of the car driver very often, but certainly no one's thinking about the bus, because the car driver can turn left at that road closure, but the bus driver can't, because that road's probably double parked. There might be a bridge down there. It's not been risk assessed. So you just sit there. And then that 100% of time to 5 that I aspire to is suddenly 80, 60, 40. And then the bus is so late, it has to terminate short. Otherwise, it's going to run late all day. And suddenly there's angry people at the end of its journey because the bus never made it to its destination, because it's turned round in Dymchurch and hasn't made its way all the way to Lydd because it had to start back right time. Otherwise, it's game over all day. So I share this as a slide for you because I want you to know when we were struggling because we didn't have drivers, we held our hands up. When we were struggling for bus breakdowns, we held our hands up. We are no longer struggling for drivers. Dave Stewart, our engineering manager at Dover, who look after Folkestone, and the same as Sam Bastick at Ashford, who looks after Old Rumney, which comes across onto the marsh, have reduced their breakdowns by 1/3, and we are in a good place. And now we need to tackle this, because if you're talking single point of failure, this is where we want to shine a light. And I guess just concluding slide from a strategic perspective, because of the people on this call and the influence you have in various forums and within local authority or local government. From my perspective, as I've been here 6.5 years now, I'm realizing how this industry is going to be okay. So fundamentally, what I'm very aware of is the ownership model is a misnomer. It's a distraction from the real problems and challenges at hand. Whether it's a commercial enterprise, whether it's a charity, whether it's run by a local authority, whether it's a franchise, the revenue that it generates has to be equal to or better than the costs of running it. Otherwise, there isn't it. It dies. And that's any business. And we all know that from our kind of corporate worlds. Now, the way to do that is not solely for me to go and win a contract that Crosskeys might have or challenge go ahead over an esport. That's rubbish. That's fighting for the same users. There's no joy in that. The only way the industry will grow is by generating more bus users through organic growth, by attracting people to come and get the bus. Now, 60% of the indicator in terms of what people look for and what will help them switch from the car to the bus, 60% of that modal shift or that satisfaction is based on punctuality and reliability. So if there is anything out there that is causing us to not be punctual or reliable, we have to eliminate it. Otherwise, we can't tell people how great the bus is, and we won't be able to get that modal shift. And the number one thing causing us loss through punctuality or reliability are streetworks and roadworks and traffic congestion. So you're in this weird situation of a bit chicken and egg. Now, back to this ownership model and debates, and should it be franchising? Should it be run by the local authority? Should it be a commercial operator? It doesn't really matter. Okay, try and find the cheapest model. And what the emerging view is, based on some of the franchising model that's going on elsewhere in the country, is that the enhanced partnership model that we currently exist in can realise the vast majority of franchising at a much lower cost to the taxpayer, which has got to be encouraged, I would suggest, because what we don't want is to be using taxpayer funding overly propping up things that could work if we had the capital investment right and got these physical infrastructure changes in place. So it's all about point 4, the local authority and the operator working together to protect the physical asset, which is the road infrastructure, while the commercial guys do our thing with making sure we're breaking down fewer, we've got our buses in place, we've got our drivers in place, our operation, our engineering plan, meet our commercial plan. What I would say, just a quick one, because this always comes up, is we've just spent about £2.5 million upgrading our app and our website so that customers can rely on that. The other thing we're just about to do is changing the amount of GPS information that comes from the bus. We're upgrading it to 5 points on the bus. Today, there's only 1 point on the bus, the ticket machine. And when the bus goes over a pothole, it knocks the SIM card loose in the ticket machine and the bus disappears off the app. I mean, this is the craziness of this world sometimes. You wouldn't know that, but our ticket machines need upgrading, but at a cost of £50 million of capital investment to the owning group, who are waiting to see whether they're going to need all those buses or not, because some people are doing franchising. Are they? Aren't they? What the hell's happening? Who knows? So there's a bit of reticence in terms of that upgrade program. In the meantime, we are funding this new system where you've got that 5 points. So if you do knock the SIM card out of the ticket machine, we're still featuring on the app. People can trust that map. Then on top of that, either through Levelling Up Fund or through the BSIP, lots more RTI and real-time information. And if you're from the railway like me, I love it. I expect to turn up at a bus stop and see electronic displays telling me where my bus is in a way that I can rely on. And any funding for that has got to be encouraged. But the big one, if you look at the best cities in Europe for transport, we've got just recently Time Out did a big old survey. There were 4 that featured in the United Kingdom. They are Brighton, Reading, Edinburgh and London, and they are all cities where the local authority and the local council have had the political will to take on the car owner. So you can't go to Brighton, you can't drive to Brighton, it'll cost you £24 to park. There are bus lanes everywhere, which means they have really deep pockets there to grow that virtuous cycle of bus use, because they can put more routes on, they can increase the quality of the bus provision. And that's what we want. We want to be in a place where we can reinvest. You know, we don't want to bank loads of money and run off into the hills. We want to be able to upgrade all of our buses so that they are newer, so that we haven't got an older average age of fleet. So anytime you ever get the opportunity to extol the virtue of bus lanes, traffic priority measures, traffic light priorities, please do so, because the more that we can make the bus a better option than the car, the more we'll be able to create a modal shift, and the more we'll be able to create that cycle where more and more buses are on the road, and we don't have to sit here head in hands trying to work out why between us and the local authority we can only run the 74 till 2 o'clock in the afternoon and not on a Saturday. These are conversations that need to be gone. Otherwise, this won't work long term. So that's kind of where we're at. Pretty exciting point. We need to find out what's going to fall out the bag from the town centre works in Folkestone. Other than that, push on.
Thank you, Joel. Very enlightening. As somebody who honestly hardly ever uses a bus. Last year I had 8 weeks where I couldn't drive and had to use a bus. And I've got to say that the app was very useful, so that you know when the bus is coming. But yeah, I think now is the time to open it up for discussion, because I've got the minutes on my screen as well. I'm going to probably struggle to see who puts their hands up. So maybe if anybody's got a question they would like to put their hands up now, and I'll see if I can switch screens quickly. Just got a hand up. Go ahead, Polly.
Unmute myself. Thank you, Joel. That was really helpful and really illuminating and really encouraging. Actually, we seem to have come a long way from where we were 18 months ago. From last time we saw you at this meeting. So yeah, onwards and upwards. It's really positive. So really good to hear that you're recruiting well and looking at getting ready to explore new opportunities. And it won't surprise you to hear that I know a lot of people who've got a lot of ideas on that front. So we'll very happily work with you on that. And sort of as well as looking at restoring new opportunities, there are obviously some existing routes that have had a lot of cutbacks, and I'm thinking about the 17 in particular and the 73, 74, you know, the ones. I know there are lots of discussions that will be forthcoming on that front. I did have a question about the Levelling Up project, because I know that's a thorn in your side at the moment, and I've got lots of people talking to me about it as well. Just to try and understand the communications wise, how it's working between you guys, the county council, the town council, and Jackson's, the contractor, because a lot of people seem to be caught completely off guard when a load of the routes, including the 16 and the 102, 3, 4, etc., were diverted. When they were diverted away from Folkestone Central Station, it all seemed to happen. Nobody kind of knew that was coming, and it was just trying to understand the process there, and if there's a way of improving that from residents. So they're not caught out again. I don't know if that's your department or it's something that you can get one of your team members to feedback on. But it'd be nice.
I had a chat with Emma today about it, because I worried that the contractor wasn't as well engaged as I thought they could be, based on this example and one other actually. It's an interesting one. It's like a micro version of the macro problem that we have all the time, which is somebody's done something that we don't know about. And I said to Emma, what are they like? And she said, actually, the communication we've had from them has been really, really good. And 9 times out of 10, they're sound. And then 1 time in 10, they do something that they haven't spoken to us about, which just wrecks the day. And it's really quite frustrating, because you're so close to it being really good. You can't even get cross with them, because they're apologetic and their heads in hands. But it is a process failing on their part. We had one with this roundabout, and they'd made an assumption that the flow of traffic, we use the roundabout as a turning circle to come back round and come back again. They modelled cars. So no cars do that unless you've gone the wrong way. You're all going off to different places, and they put their traffic management in place to allow for that, but they hadn't put their traffic management in place to allow for a bus to come all the way around again. So when Emma pointed that out, they then resolved it, but not until we decimated our bus service for a while. And what I'm finding in this job, and rail's the same, is whether it's your fault, someone else's fault, no one's fault, you're the baddie. Stagecoach are the baddies. We're the unacceptable face of that bus service provider. And we would quite like to change that, but I think that, that will come over time. And as you say, the more that we can do to get the information right, the better we will be. So that's a long way of saying I'm relatively well assured that the comms is not bad at all, but there are individual bits that we can get better. In fact, Emma even told me that she's on first name terms with the comms lead for the contract. I think her name was Esme, but
Esme,
and she was very complimentary about her. And she's very gentle, but she's no shrinking violet. If she's unhappy about something, I will know about it. She generally comes and marches in my office and tells me what she thinks. So it's not bad. It's one of these ones, Polly, where is it the right thing for the bus industry to do what we're doing? Probably on balance, it's not quite. Is it the right thing for the town? Probably on balance, it is. And you want to do the right thing for you guys and for the community. So you kind of take the hit for the greater good. I'm just hoping that it does become the greater good, the whole change in it. Because having roadside infrastructure there are some wins from this, because there's no reversing moves. And reversing a bus isn't as safe as driving forward. So we remove all our reversing. But you can't leave the bus on the roadside. So the brake issue is a problem. It gives us less layover time. Punctuality is worse because of it. So there are pluses and negatives, and we will have to see how that plays out. But we'll keep going on the comms. We're just the provider. We'll do what we're told, and we'll try and make the best of it, I guess, is the overarching point. But we won't just hide and wait and see what happens. We are trying to be very much engaged with it.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I can see Tim's got his hand up.
Thank you, and thank you from the unacceptable face of buses for joining us. I really appreciate the engagement, Joel, and the update. I'd be interested in a few areas. I'm concerned about the comments about the bus station since the project's inception back 5 years ago and the bid that was placed for that, we were reassured as councillors throughout that Stagecoach were on side for this project, and that the bus station project and the realignment to a linear bus station was something that had your enthusiastic support. And today is the first time I have learnt that it does not have your enthusiastic support, and that depresses me somewhat. I'm trying to work out who has overstated that report, that support, and where. I hope we can resolve some layover issues. I know that there is a layover bus stop, but I do accept it's around the other side of the square, which is not as helpful. But I said I'm disappointed that we're that we've been told one thing very clearly through this process, about Stagecoach's view. Indeed, in meetings that Stagecoach representatives have been at, and I've been at, they have expressed that view in that meeting. For you, with your wider view at that stage, to be expressing a different view, I don't know if it's different view, but I understand that there is a risk here, and what you are doing is explaining and managing that risk. But it's disappointing that risk wasn't said louder, or in a way that we heard it anyway as councillors, perhaps earlier in this process, so that we could have helped build in some mitigation on that. I also hear very much a point on utilities and their time in roads. As far as I'm concerned, it's not even just that they can drop onto a road and start digging it up for no reason, but then they can leave it there for some significant period of time while not working on that bus stop. Because it is cheaper for them to have 4 different teams to do a piece of work and to schedule the work. So they have the hole digging team, and then they have the fixing thing team, and then they have the hole filling team, and then they have the taking away the traffic lights team. And the fact that there is a day that each of those are scheduled on different days, what matters then doesn't matter to them at all, it seems, but matters to those who are facing a 4-day closure where a 1-day one could have done it, very much. And I totally get that buses are more impacted in that than anyone else, because a car will eventually get through that gap and a bus might not. So I don't get that, and I'd be interested in any views of who we should be pushing at our various different levels in order to do that. I suspect the answer is government, mate, and we need to significantly increase the enforcement mechanisms which we have to hand, and change the regime on which those are granted, so that it becomes much more permission led, or at least advance notice led, rather than reactive. Finally, though, my final question would be about, I'm pleased that you've now got a baseline and that you're progressing on that baseline. You've got some development there. What are your most immediate priorities in terms of service enhancements? You will obviously have a list. It will be a rolling list in terms of what you would like to see happen next, what you would like to see improve next, where you would aim first in terms of services. I'm sure that's negotiable, and it will depend on how much, on how those passengers numbers increase, etc. But where are your highest priorities for service build back in the Folkestone Hythe area?
So the first one, just you'll have to remind me as we go, Tim. But so the first one was, oh dear, this isn't what we've heard from Stagecoach so far in terms of our slight anxiety around the levelling up project. So I've always been pro whatever you guys, or whatever Folkestone Hythe District Council, King County Council want to do, because it's our job to get on board and help. And I think initially, you know, when you haven't got the detail, it's more a kind of strategic support with some tactical understanding what's going to go on. I think fundamentally the main issue is Old Romney was a Folkestone garage outstation, and that's where the 102 and the 103 run from. So we have you guys probably know, we have an outstation at Old Romney at Sycamore Farm, out towards around about Brenzett, and we operate from there. But it cycles at Ashford. It used to cycle out of Folkestone, and that would have been fine. It then started to cycle out of Dover when we merged those two sites, but actually, you know, Lyd Camp to Dover is quite some distance, and it didn't make logistical sense. So we moved that operation to Ashford. Now, the challenge we've got there is the lack of brake facility now at Folkestone we note the layover point around the back of the Saga building, which helps to a point. But I think Emma is anxious about some dead mileage that we will need to build in to send the 102, 103 on its break back to Ashford for the driver to have a break there, either at Ball Yard in the town centre or at the depot. But as I say, we haven't cut the duties yet. And when we do, we will see what it does. But it is, I guess it's just a point to note, really. It's a flag up that says, that wasn't a theme when Matthew originally said, yeah, this is cool, we're pro this. I have to say, I think it's a great scheme. I think from a personal perspective, I like it. The bus station is tired. It doesn't look very aesthetically pleasing to people. Folkestone is on the up. It's a great town. There's an awful lot going on. One of the things that we've just done is reach the beach, which we were always intending to do. And I think it was BSIP funding that Cross Keys were doing. So, as a commercial operator, we can do that. I think we're both doing it this year, and then we'll see what happens. But the view would be actually it's more sensible to use that BSIP funding for something else if the commercial operator is happy to do that at their cost. So that, I guess that's one of the things a bit later on. So I don't want you to hear me being anti or not in support of the Levelling Up Fund project at the bus station. I definitely am, and we definitely are. We're just noting we're a bit anxious to see what it does to the cost baseline for some of those routes. And we will try and mitigate the risk of that with whatever clever things Emma can come up with and our drivers are in support of. There is walking time that wasn't there. So even to get from the bus stop around the back of the square now over to the bus station, you have to consult that with the union. You have to build that into duties, and if you have to put one more bus into the cycle to remain that continue that frequency, even 2 or 3 minutes can create another bus in the cycle. And people think it's only one more bus. One more bus is around about £300,000 per annum. And if it's predominantly concessionary passengers travelling on that, that's 200,000 more concessionary pass holders tapping a year just to make that break even, when it probably won't drive any more income or any more patronage. So you have to try and do what you can to mitigate that. What was the second one, Tim?
I was just going to follow in on the bus station one. I think that the one other significant advantage it has, though, is the buses are not doing a 180 in the station on a regular basis.
Exactly.
And there have been accidents there because there are many things which buses are good at, but sharp 180-degree turns is not amongst their skill set.
Spot on. It is definitely a safer mode of operation. Everybody pulling up, getting on and moving forward, no reversing, no big work moves. So, as I say, there are some definite upsides to it.
Cool. The second one was utilities and ways that we can stop them hogging the road.
So you've already got it. What this will require is legislation change, and I've been wading back through the House of Commons library to try and work out when this happened. Successive governments, doesn't matter who was in government, everyone's had a go at it, but it hasn't really landed because you've got all of these strategic competing themes. The irony is that the customer, they're all our customers. We're trying to serve the same people, and the commercial utility companies are under the same commercial pressures. So that relationship helps. So the more that we can join up as a community and get the business leaders and the people together in a room to try and help everybody see how we could do this better is helping. And that's what we're doing on a local level with KCC support. However, for me, it does need some legislation change. So I wrote a blog. I was lucky enough to get some good press coverage. We got on BBC Radio Sussex and BBC Radio Kent. There was quite a lot of noise around it. Kent County Council were invited to report to the Transport Select Committee on the challenge of it and why it's a nightmare. Then everybody else was able to jump on the bandwagon, and actually we're starting to see some momentum around what might be done differently. But again, you know better than most, legislation change takes a long time. So rather than just sitting back and waiting for the next 5 years when somebody's going to do something about it to try and help protect bus passengers, what else can we do in the meantime? And that is help people have visibility over how painful it is for bus customers and other road users and why. One of the things we are doing is we have offered my central control team at our cost to update New Ventures customers and to be there for instead of KCC. So, for example, if SGN come and there's an emergency, there's gas leak, they've got to dig up the road, and they turn up at midnight on a Friday night, the local authority probably won't know about that until 9 o'clock on Monday morning. However, it's going to take them 2 or 3 hours to mobilise. And in the meantime, if they ring my control team can tweet everybody. We can cut up some duties quickly. We can see if there are any available diversionary routes. And we can, at the very least, tell customers, you're going to be late. That's not going to work for you. You need to try that way. It just gives us half a chance more. So any time at all, and the SGN and UK Power Networks were really pro that. And we've got a press release ready to go just to tell the communities that the bus operator, the power networks, the gas operator, the Kent County Council, we're coming together to try and remove this divisiveness where people all get angry with each other, because fundamentally everybody's just trying to do their best and we're all trying to look after the same people anyway. And unless you guys will know, I'm yet to find more than a handful of really obstructive, difficult people. People are generally just trying to do their best. So if you can leverage that, because people understand, then that's what we're trying to do alongside the legislation, because it does need legal change as well as good intention and nice people doing their best. One in or the other doesn't work. So what was the third one?
Priorities for service build back.
Yeah. Again, I think for me, without being too woolly about it, there's probably 3 points to this. One is, let's see what people want to see from a volume perspective. There's a traditional, this new build's being built here, there's some Section 106 funding for it, there's Otterpool, there's this, there's that. Then there is the local intel where we would come to yourselves or the local focus groups and they might know about a little or a new school or this happening or that happening. Then there's the Joel, who've we really upset in the past and how can we go back and say sorry and try and do that. And I guess with that in mind, although the numbers were small, the noise was great when we didn't run all the way through to Hythe on the 16th. So if we can find a way of doing something like that to reinstate some or all of those journeys, then there's the new opportunities where stations meet, Harbour Arm. So there are quite a few things I'd like to see. And then there's the Saturday services on the stuff that doesn't run commercially that Kent have tendered that we currently operate on behalf of Kent County Council. And just to try and find a way of, if there isn't BSIP money for that, how do KCC feel about us trying to run a Saturday service commercially? I'm not quite sure how that works, and we haven't had that conversation with them, and they're decent people, and it'll either be all right or it won't. But even if there's just one or two things where we can say, look, we are trying, we are building back. Otherwise, saying we're going to build back and not building back gets boring very quickly. So we'll get the bus station works done. We'll get the roadside bus stops in. We'll run it for a little bit, see how it's working, and then have a look and see what we can do. And we've got the Reach the Beach. We've just done Reach the Beach from Ashford down to Dymchurch, which is lovely, connecting the people of Ashford down with Dymchurch, St Mary's Bay. We are looking to see, Catherine was telling me earlier that we think we might be able to do something that connects the 10 better into Folkestone town centre and possibly down to the Harbour Arm. So we might, there's an opportunity there. But just, if people are excited about it, we'll give it a go. If they're not, then it's probably not worth doing. What we've got to be really careful not to do is get us to a position where we break it and we become loss making again, and then everything starts to unravel. But I think we're okay. And the stuff we need to do, statutory, the stuff we're excited to do, and then there's the sorry, I know you didn't like it when we took that away. We made good arguments for it at the time, give representations of why we had to take it away, but let's have another go. Like even when we spoke to Jim Martin about use it or lose it on the 10, the 10 was gone. That is fully tendered now by Kent County Council. I think it was running at 112% loss. You know, there's nothing that's going to keep that going. So, you know, we're fortunate for the moment that the BSIP fund. I guess, Tim, the final point on that is let's find out what the central government's pot is for us. I think we're going to find out 4 years of capital investment and 3 years of revenue. Oh no, the other way around. 3 years of capital investment, 4 years of revenue, and whether that continues with the current stuff that we've got, or whether we've lost a bit. I'm very hopeful that we aren't going to lose anything, but I'm not sure. And then we can see what the taxpayer is funding for strategic growth, where we now are in terms of the commercial baseline, and between those two pots, we can have a good go at trying some stuff all together. And then we, in the community, we will push it. You guys wax lyrical, make a big song and a dance about it, and try and find a baseline example of, look, when the community came together and we really extolled the virtue of this, it's worked, and we've grown the passenger numbers, and now it's commercially sustainable. And that, for me, commercially sustainable is zero. I don't mind not making any money. I just can't afford to run at losses, because then it detrimentally impacts the rest of the network.
Right, good questions and good answers. We've got Alan Martin with his hand up. I'm sure this is going to be something about rural buses down on the marsh, but he may prove me wrong.
You may be right. First of all, thanks for the update, Joel. Really good. And I can remember when you spoke to us before, you did talk about trying to get to a baseline that you could build back from. But I can remember leaving the call with a sense that you were by no means certain that you'd actually get to that point. So it seems like you have done. So well done about that. We don't have to go back over the bus station thing again, but just to say that it does feel like there's been a bit of a communication breakdown one way or the other there, and I'm pretty sure all the people in the council working on the project would never have wanted to have inconvenienced Stagecoach, because we know that you guys are, you know, in a difficult enough place as it is. So I guess more of an open question perhaps for us to take away around whether you were involved enough, were you given an opportunity to speak up enough. But it just feels one way or another something broke down there. And then, as headlined by Councillor Wimble, I do have a marsh-based question. So you talk about incentivising the setup so that people see public transport as being the primary form of transport, and I guess in some way disincentivising people to use cars and so on. Of course, there are no easy answers, I appreciate, but that's made more difficult in rural areas like on the marsh. People like myself living in Ivychurch, I couldn't give you a business case for running buses more frequently through Ivychurch, but I can get a bus to Ashford that gets me in Ashford just enough time to get the bus coming back the other way. And I guess I would be quite open to using the bus to get from New Romney into Folkestone, for instance, particularly if I'm sort of going out. But I'm not likely to do that simply because I've first of all got to get from Ivychurch into New Romney. So I'm just interested in your thoughts. As I say, I know that's not an easy thing to solve, but when you're looking at how you build out, I mean, some areas have dial-a-ride schemes. There are other approaches to sort of trying to create sort of feeder options to get people into those hubs that you then run your buses to and from. Just interested to get your thoughts on what can be done for the rural areas.
I mean, you're right. It's a difficult nut to crack, and I guess you're talking about the 511, are you now? That was the 11 that comes to get you and takes you up to Ashford just in time for you to go home again. Yeah, I mean, I live. I'm not that far from you actually, and I live in Beckley, just north of Rye. So yeah, over the other side of the Brenzett roundabout, up to Appledore and up the hill. I think rural services are really challenged because the cost per mile is extraordinarily high, given the cost of living crisis and the wage inflation that we've seen, which is necessary because we for one of those years our baseline pay for our frontline colleagues went up 11% because it's RPI, and that's what we had to do because you don't want people to be leaving and not able to eat or reliant on food banks. So it's a challenging model. What I would say is where I've seen it work well is where, because we run on a network basis, I don't need every route to make money. I'm not worried about that. I need to get to a point where I can break even, and then I need to get to another point where I can cover the cost of capital required to invest 400 grand in a new bus, because otherwise I lose my passengers because my buses get old and unreliable and break down. So it is a, it's a virtuous cycle of growing income, covering your costs, so you've got a safe baseline, creating more revenue, putting it back into the business, getting more people onto the bus, a happy world. Where I've seen it work well is where the town network is so successful, you can afford to run the rural network in low negative margins because they all connect together. And then you've got people coming in to use your town network. But again, it's a bit chicken and egg. And that isn't to say it works everywhere like that. There are a myriad of different things going on and people trying. So we've got a DRT scheme that you probably know about that runs in the old coal villages, sort of at Aylsham, Elvington, around that part of the world out in Dover. But, without giving too many commercial secrets away, I think it's Section 106 funded. I wouldn't be able to run that. I think each customer is about £25 per passenger. That's not a good use of money. But then you bring those people into the town and, as you say, there is a way to connect. So I think for me, it's about making sure what you do run, you run really well so people can rely on it. Trying to use the Strategic Growth Fund, which formerly known as the BSIP, to try and do things like run later services. And both Kent and Sussex have been good at running later services. I've got a 9 o'clock from Rye back to Beckley, and my wife and I will go into Rye, have a beer, have some dinner, and get the 9 o'clock back. And I curse it a bit because I'm having a nice time by that point. I don't want to go home at 9. But, it's better that than there being nothing after 5:30. So it's what are the pots of money available? BSIP, commercial revenue, concessionary income. How can you use that for the very best of the wider network? And how can profitable routes subsidize non-profitable routes, but to a point where the whole network works and there's cross subsidy from route X paying for route Y? And we used to do that relatively well before COVID. The challenge we've had is that those profitable routes are now kind of breaking even, and those ones that lost money lose so much money and there's nothing there to prop them up. Then you have to go cap in hand to Kent County Council, who then end up using the Strategic Growth Fund that would be great for this conversation, where you want to run more frequent and later to try and grow that patronage. But the money's gone, papering over the cracks of something that it wasn't really there for. So we need to try and move that pendulum back to more reliance on the customer and the consumer funding stuff. So the burden on the taxpayer can be released to use that money to grow those opportunities and get people a bit more excited. The other thing I don't think we've been brilliant at in the bus industry is the marketing. Again, nobody's fault. Some organisations are better at it than others. I know one of my frustrations is we could and should be doing better in terms of telling people what we are doing really well, building back trust, making sure people know that we're kind of mid-80s in terms of punctuality, that our lost mileage is now at 0.4%, that the web works really well, the app works, so you can rely on the information you're getting, the bus is going to be on time, or if it's a bit late, it's definitely coming, and start to grow that reliance and that trust that we're a decent provider. And then because of that, you've got a bit more, and then you can speculate and start to join up those rural communities that haven't got a service otherwise. Long answer. Took me 6 years to get to that.
Thank you for that, though.
You're welcome.
Right, and finally for you, I think at the moment, anyway, Gary Fuller has his hand up.
Thanks, David. Just a couple of quick questions, really. One, you've talked about the potential for dead time, as it were, if we move the bus station. What facilities are actually, or when we move the bus station, I should say, what facilities are you do you actually require to allow your staff to take that time in Folkestone, as it were? And second question, just about the app, I was just trying to understand. So you mentioned you've got SIM cards coming loose in your readers. You've spent a lot of money on the app, but I think, for example, your readers still don't have QR code readers, the actual ticket thing, even though the apps can produce QR codes and things. So why are you sort of holding off that upgrade when you've just spent 2.5 million on the app, as it were?
Yeah, okay, some good questions there. So the first one about what facilities do we need? There are staff messroom facilities still at Folkestone bus station. We've got our training school on the first floor, and certainly for the time being, until we talk about otherwise, whether that's going to be a cafe, whether part of that remains usable. The challenge there is where to put the bus. So what you can't do is snarl up a roadside bus stop, because then the other bus can't get in, and then suddenly the traffic's totally jammed up. Or if you have got a roadside bus stop or bus provision or bus stand, there's only X number of buses that can use that stand at any one time. So you start to end up in a position where you're wandering around with nowhere to go, and that's where you end up diverting back to Ashford. And that's the risk that we don't have today, because we've got 6 stands without using a bus stop in the bus station, and we certainly aren't replacing those on the roadside, but for good reason. What was the second point, Gary? Sorry, been a long day.
That was about the app. It was
the app.
sort of
dual-pronged
question.
Yeah, it's a really insightful question. So the 2.5 million is national level, and it's upgrading the back office tech so it doesn't crash. So when you upload it now on either on Android or Apple, it's much more reliable, much more resilient. Lots of testing with customers, lots of interaction, mystery shopping, customer stakeholder sessions. So the app is much more user friendly. We've got a guy called Duncan Heald, and from my perspective, he's the best app developer I've ever worked with. I'm not particularly techie, but I'm well impressed with him. Now, the challenge on the upgrade to the hardware, which is the ticket machine, is I referred to it briefly earlier, is the challenge that we've got nationally about what's happening with franchising. So doesn't really affect us in the southeast at the minute. I mean, we've got the LGR for Kent. That's quite some way off. Are we going to franchise? Are we not? Which unitary authorities are we going to have? Are there going to be 3? Are there going to be 5? Is there going to be an overarching organisation looking after it? Like, we're a way away in there. Lot to do. Same with East Sussex, a bit further on, because they're on the fast track to devolution. But what's the appetite? They've got West Sussex, East Sussex, Brighton and Hove, umbrella organisation. But Transport for the West Midlands, Manchester's gone, Yorkshire, the North East. There's lots of conversations at the minute about what's happening for franchising and what does that mean for the local operator. We'd hope to retain them at most of our operating area because we're a decent operator, we're a big operator, we care, we want to do the right thing. But if you invest capital in stuff that you then don't need because the franchising specification requires a different type of ticket machine, somehow that kit has to live somewhere in the organisation, and then you find the provisional operating companies like mine with quite a big overhead for machines that you didn't need, and then you're talking about what routes you can still afford to run because you're dragging yourself into a position where you've worked hard to get out of. So it's difficult in a moving world politically. So what I would say is I've seen the kit, I've seen where Stagecoach are going with it, and it's really exciting. And it's my job to lobby because our owning group's definitely going to invest. It's definitely going to upgrade our ETMs, and you will have all of those things. Tap on, tap off, QR readers, all of that good stuff that we need longer term. It will come. The question is, of my 18 operating company colleagues, how quickly can I get myself to the top of that list? And in terms of for exactly the same question around when are we getting more electric buses, Joel, when are you getting newer buses? The answer is when my business cases enable me to secure the funding for those, because we've got a really good owning group who wants to invest in growing the competency and the capability of my operating company. But we also need to be in a position where it's covering its base costs, and that investment and the cost of borrowing, capital cost of borrowing is X, and many of my garages aren't also X. So the more we can do together to grow patronage, to get to that virtuous circle, and what I'm learning is to unlock all of this, new ticket machines, new software, new hardware, new buses, It's capital investment in the roadside infrastructure that will unlock that, which I'm finding quite interesting because it's relatively binary, but bus lanes are highly politicised. The only place that we operate in at the minute where there's a lot of talk about it is in Eastbourne, and that's hard. I mean, that's been cut back, cut back, cut back. So again, it's how do we get aligned behind a common purpose? And it's this thing that unlocks all of these things. And when you say to somebody, bus lanes mean new ticket machines, they look at you like you've got two heads. But genuinely, that is where we are arriving at that. Certainly, I'm arriving at that conclusion. Everything we can get customers out of cars, grow organic revenue, replace the asset, get excited about it, grow more organic revenue, everyone's a winner.
Well, thank you for that, Joel. I've got to
Yes.
say, it's been a few years since I sat on this group, and things are looking far more positive now than they were 3 years ago anyway. So thank you for the update.
You are very welcome. Very welcome. Thank you for inviting me on. I'm always happy to come on and I'll always tell you how things are. Hopefully we continue with the positive tone and it keeps moving forward. So do you want me to hang around, Chair?
I don't think there's anything else on the agenda that will affect you. So if you want to scoot off out, then you're more than welcome, unless anybody's got any reason why they think he should stay here. I don't think so. You can go, Joel. You've been excused.
I think
Run
my
for your
wife,
life.
my wife will be very happy for the 15 minutes. Well, she wasn't when I came on the call, so I still haven't done that. Cheers all. Have a nice evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joel.
Bye-bye.
Good night, Joel. Right, item number 7 on the agenda, Highways Forward Works Programme. James Bowen is hopefully standing by to give us an update.
Can you hear me, Chair?
Yep, we can hear you.
Good, fantastic. Just trying to unmute myself. What I do, Chair, instead of going from like item to item, if I just go from like appendix to appendix, and if anyone's got any questions or queries, we can go from there. Appendix A, road footway and cycleway renewal. Anybody got any questions they would like to ask?
Tim's
Hello,
first in the
James.
door.
Hello, Tim.
Hello, James. Road asset renewal schemes. Great to see Romney Avenue on there, although it's Enbrook Village to Coolidge Lane. Just saying. Though in our conversations, you'll know that I keep asking and you keep promising me, absolutely promising me every time, that the A259 Sandgate High Street up Sandgate Hill from Military Road, possibly back as far as the parade, but going up to Coolidge Lane, is also on the resurfacing list. And then it didn't appear here, and you broke my heart, James. Why is it not in this list?
Ah, well spotted. Let's have a look. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's not there. What I'll
Get it back.
do, Councillor. Yeah, I will have a chat with our renewal team because I was under the impression that it was on their programme to be done. So I will do some chasing. Let me just make a note.
That would be really kind. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries at all. I'm thinking it's either been missed or it's on potentially for next year. But I will ask the question, Tim.
I'd previously been told that it was broadly following the Romney Avenue scheme, and they were broadly going to move kit from A to B, but it was kind of in the same area. But I'm therefore just hopeful that it's a clerical error being missed and can be fixed really easily.
Lovely, no worries at all. Shall I move on, Chair? Right, appendix. Just have a look. Appendix B, drainage. Anybody got any queries or questions?
Did we have any issues with the flash flooding that Dover had the other week down in Folkestone Hythe district through blocked drains where they weren't proactively unblocked before the rain, as opposed to being reactively unblocked following the rain?
Yeah, I can kind of jump in there, Chair. Fortunately or unfortunately, I was the out of hours officer for Folkestone and Hythe on behalf of KCC the other week, and lucky for us, Dover and Thanet got hit very, very hard, as you could see that on the local news and social media. Folkestone got away with it, Chair. I don't know how. Just from my point of view, didn't receive one single phone call all night for Folkestone and Hythe. Unlike Dover and Thanet that had flooding after flooding, but no, we got away with it, Chair. Fortunately, so unless you know of any kind of local issues, no.
No, in my point of view, talking with highways, it's one of the things that KCC are looking to do more proactively than reactively. So have we got any other questions on that part of the agenda, or would you like James to carry on? I think you've got the green light to carry on.
Yeah, lovely. Right. Appendix C, street lighting. It's quite a list there. Anything from anybody? No. Right, let's move on, Chair, if you're happy. Appendix D, casualty reduction measures.
Oh, 1 second. We do have Polly Blakemore's got a hand up. I thought you got away with that one, didn't you?
Yes, my old favourite, because I see that my favourite junction, Cherry Garden Avenue, with Cheriton Road is there. And there seems to have been a bit of movement since last time we had this conversation about the reconfiguration. You're talking about alternative design. And this is first I've heard about this, and expected delivery, even more exciting, December 25. So I was just after some more info on that, please.
Yeah, cool. I can take that away. Like it says there, alternative design. From what I've heard, Councillor, things are rumbling in the background there, but I can get a bit more meat on the bones for you on that one. Let me just make a note of the scheme number.
Perfect. Thank you. And also, just while I'm here, I just wanted to thank officers for doing the walkthrough of the active travel scheme. I think it was back in March. It was a while back, but I don't think we've met since then. And just to say that was a really helpful process to go through. And there was a sort of schedule of works that has come out of that, which will hopefully address some of the issues that we're seeing. I think that's the latest schedule I saw, so most of those are due for delivery by March next year. So that was a really good bit of working together there, and great that officers took the time to come out and come down and have conversations with us.
Cool, lovely. Would you like me to do some sort of chasing, just sort of see where we are that come out of the walk, or?
I think they've been pretty good, actually. I think I've had the an update. So no, it was just to send my thanks, really. But no, I've got most of the information. If they can just keep us updated as we move forward, that would be perfect.
Lovely. Thank you, Councillor. All right. If you're happy, Chair, we'll move on.
Yep.
Right. Where are we? Just scrolling through externally funded schemes there. Any questions, queries from anyone?
His hand up again.
Yeah, it's me again, I'm afraid, James.
That's okay.
An externally funded 20 MPH zone scheme in New Romney is brilliant to see that, but obviously you'll know that we've got one in Sandgate as well, which is externally funded and has now gone through having agreement. It's been through the TRO. The design has been done and we're just waiting for the shopping list. A, can I have the shopping list? And B, why is it not on that list at that stage?
Okay, I can ask and find out for you.
Aside from painting the lines, I don't know how much closer we can be to it. So it's kind of assumed we'd be there by now.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Thank you for that. Right, let's move on. What have we got now? Major capital programme there. Obviously, we've covered a bit of levelling up. Anybody else got any questions, queries on that? Nothing's been pretty covered. Right, developer funded works. Anything from anyone?
Just a question. I think this one's been rumbling on a while. The bus shelter that we're still waiting for, outside Tesco's on Horn Street. I think this is part. I think we're meant to be chasing, or you were going to be chasing Taylor Wimpey about this. I think this has been running for years, and it was just to see have the developer actually agreed that they're going to supply it or install it. That is up to them to do so, or where are we at with that one?
I've made a note, and I'll do some more chasing there. You are. It's been bounded about for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
All I can do is keep prodding Taylor Wimpey and see what we can get out of them. But no, it's embarrassing at the same time. But no, thank you, Councillor.
Okay, thank you.
Before Tim jumps back in, could I also ask a question about the bus shelter at St Mary's Bay that was demolished recently in an accident? Is there any plan to rebuild it, or is it just going to be a stop sign?
Okay, rebuild. Let me make a note of that. Thank you, Chair.
Right, if I can just jump in there, is that the one that's at the bottom of Taylor's Lane?
It's on the A259 at the bottom of Jefferson Lane.
Jefferson Lane. It might be the one I'm thinking of then. There was one that was taken out in an RTC a little while ago. It's a clear channel. It's a clear channel one, and that is due to be replaced in the next few weeks or so. All of the clear channel bus shelters are being replaced as part of the clear channel contract. So I have asked if that one can be sort of done sooner rather than later in the programme, but that's all I've got on it at the moment.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that.
That's right.
And Tim is back.
James will be unsurprised to learn Cheriton High Street, Cheriton Approach, although the new traffic lights did create a right-hand lane into Cheriton, that also built a massive traffic hazard in that we do not have any pedestrian crossing signalling there. This is a theme rehearsed regularly by my predecessor, Rory Love, and indeed Dylan Jeffrey, and all of those who have ever tried to cross those lights from the range to Tesco's and lived in fear of their life for that period. We need that is a danger waiting to happen. I know that you know that. I know that you are trying to get the developer to speak to us, who funded that scheme. I totally understand that we are where we are, that they're not going to go back or anything. We need to fix that junction. Somebody is going to die. It is a hazard. You cannot see the lights when you are trying to cross from the range. You cannot see what is on go coming towards you, either from Tesco's or from the motorway, and therefore you have to guess. And we can't be in a position whereby people are being crossing a dual carriageway, guessing whether the traffic is coming at them. We've got to fix that, and I don't know if that's closing that crossing and putting someone somewhere else. Whether it's, I don't know what it is, but it's not acceptable, James. And we've discussed this a lot, and we need to.
Thank you, Councillor, and we have discussed it numerous times. I will keep prodding Taylor Wimpey. I will look to potentially escalate this as well, Councillor, because it's something that's just been on the radar, and we need to get to some kind of solution and conclusion as well on this. Absolutely. Thank you, Chair.
There you go. Right, is that all your points? Because I haven't got the appendix with me. I've just got the right order.
I've just gone to the next appendix. If I've got this right, bear with me. Bridgeworks, Appendix F. Bridgeworks there from anybody? No. Right, if I can move on. Appendix G, Traffic Systems. No. Right, if I move on. This is combined member grant schemes. I think the only site on there was a Tony Hills one, 2-horse warning signs and Dungeness Road. Works complete. So that's the only scheme on there. And what have we got? Road markings appendix. Appendix I. Any questions? It's to be programmed. Nothing. Appendix J is streetworks. There's quite a bit there. Anything from anybody on Appendix J? No. Lovely. Okay. Thank you, Chair. Thank you for that. I think that was all the appendices. Just bear with me. There's a lot of information from streetworks, so I'm still scrolling through.
I did have one question about the repairs that were carried out outside the plough in New Romney that everybody been waiting for a long time. They were done last Thursday or Friday, I think. Most of the tarmac's already come out of the holes, and it's been regarded as a bit of a joke in and around New Romney.
All right, okay.
I don't think it was almost a case of somebody with a wheelbarrow putting some tarmac in there, tamping it down, painting a white line round where they'd done it, and nearly all of it's come out.
Sorry, Chair, is this just a temporary repairs that were undertaken?
Well, it was scheduled work, so it was a very temporary repair. Let's leave it at that, I think.
Right, okay.
Just to make you aware of the fact that all the tarmac's pretty much come away within a week.
No, thank you for that, Chair. I can look into that. I'll have a chat with my local team, and then we'll go from there.
Okay.
But yeah. Thank you, much appreciated. I think that was it. Me done, Chair.
Okay, thank you, James. Thank you for the updates.
Thank you.
Last item on the agenda, number 8, proposed parking restrictions in Folkestone Hythe District Council, and we hand over to Paul Thompson.
Thank you, Chair. So the first one I've got on there, item 2, motorhome and overnight weekend parking ban. If anyone's got any questions on those 3 items, fire away.
I can't see any hands, so I'm guessing you got away with that one.
No, I put my hand up. I just didn't put my yellow hand up. Just to thank Paul and the team for putting item 2.3 on there, which has been a matter of some difficulty for some time, with the issues very much being around people overnight parking in camper vans, etc., very close to other people's houses. I think there is a mixed economy approach to be used in these things. I think that encouraging tourism and encouraging visitors to the area is important. However, having somebody camping in a van directly outside your house is not something that is working well in some of those locations. I should probably declare an interest. I live in Sandgate High Street, and probably right outside my house is one of those locations covered by this ban. So I'll declare an interest as well while I'm going. But the certainly to welcome that, and I'm sure that the same applies very much in Marine Parade as well in Folkestone. So I think it is a good stage. I'm looking forward to it going to consultation, and I hope it can be in place relatively soon.
Thank you, Tim. Next one, item 3, at any times the double yellow line restrictions, Kent Road there, just for reducing now that we don't no longer have the bus depot there. Any questions on that one?
Yep, hand over to Polly.
Yeah, I've got a quick question on that one, just to confirm, because I know that was one that came to you via me, a resident, highlighted it with me. Can I just check that? I don't think it's clear from the map, but can I just check that you're also removing the DYLs from outside number 16? Because they're not
that'll
marked.
just have a dog bone across it.
Oh, that's just a dog bone.
Driveway. Yeah,
sorry, could you
be no
repeat
need
that,
to have
Paul?
yellow lines. Sorry, say again, Polly.
So sorry, I lost you there. Could you just repeat what you said?
Yeah, I think it just have a dog bone across that driveway bit.
Yeah.
On number 16 there.
Yeah, because I think on the map is it the map on page? Not the map. It doesn't show the yellow lines being removed outside number 16, but
I've only put on there sort of where it.
You've only put the new ones. Okay.
Yeah, sort of like the reduced length ones.
Fine, that's fine. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
No more questions on that.
Next on, then we've got footway parking ban Canongate Gardens. Any questions on that one?
I'm not sure. No, I thought Polly had her hand up. She was late.
That was a legacy hand.
And then moving on then, no loading and unloading, got Radnor
Hi. Strong, very strong support for this, Paul, as you know. Really hope it's the problems in Radnor Cliff, particularly around weekends and particularly around sunny weekends, entering to the Lower Lees Park are legion. If you are either a district councillor or the cabinet member for parking, it is a really difficult approach. Although this in no way helps fix that problem, it helps ameliorate it a bit in that at the moment people are currently parking on those double yellow lines using their blue badge permit to do so. Parking in that area loses the only significant turning zone that is in that area, and adds to the literal gridlock which happens in those roads. On its own, this does not fix the problem of gridlock in Radnor Cliff, but it does give some opportunities for vehicles to turn around and get back out again, which is really helpful. And although I accept the disappointment it will cause to some people with blue badges who use that space to park on legally at this stage and going in a line, the turning circle is absolutely required for any variety of traffic flow in that area, and therefore very supportive to make that a no stopping area entirely, and B, ask Paul if how quickly one can possibly bring this forward. I don't know if there are any with our agreement, whether there are any emergency powers to bring it forward, because 3 or 4 months worth of consultation on this takes us through until it's too late for this year. It is genuinely something that could help this weekend and this summer holiday, not in October.
Yeah, I'll back you up on that one, Tim. The sooner we can get that done, the better.
Yeah, hopefully I'll get things ready for statutory consultation in the next week or so. That's the quickest I can do it, just because of producing the legal documents and things like that. But what I'll do is obviously you'll be on the statutory consultee list, so you'll get an email to say that when the consultation is starting. But yeah, I hope to start it. I'm actually off for 2 weeks from next Friday. So I want to get it sort of all prepared before I go away. So at least then it will be starting. But yeah, we are subject to that statutory 3-week consultation. I'm not proposing too many objections to it, because it's not going to necessarily, the people that park there aren't from the area, so that's unlikely they will see the proposal notice. So once the consultation is finished, it will just be a case of getting that painted as the markings on the ground as quickly as possible, and then the order sealed by KCC.
Are there no emergency powers that we can use or agree with us as a district or with KCC in order to get that in place quicker than a week until we put it into statutory? So we're talking a month or so. We're well into the school summer holidays. That road is destroyed at this moment.
I don't know
if there is anything we can do, if there's any suspension of the rights of parking on those roads that we can do as an emergency measure until the full consultation has gone through, I'd really welcome it. I'm hoping Fred's put his hand up to explain that there is a way of doing that.
Yes, good evening, Chair. Yeah, I spoke to Andrew about it because I've been off on leave for a couple of weeks, but we can certainly have words with KCC because they are the ones that will make the order. We can look to introduce an emergency traffic regulation order, which is what we call an experimental order. We could just bring it in straight away. We can allow objections for up to 6 months, and then we can make it a permanent traffic regulation order. But it means without consulting, we could just bring it in, advise people that they can still object. We have to observe and monitor during the period of 6 months, and then make recommendations to make it a permanent order. KCC, they're not very keen on doing experimental orders, but I will be having words. Paul and I will have words with the traffic order people and see if they can do it.
That sounds like an ideal solution, certainly to get it through in time for the summer holidays anyway.
I would absolutely support that and be very grateful if we could pursue that route, Paul and Fred. I know that we know over many years, over a number of years, how bad that is. It is not improving this year, and anything that we can get in place, and if that sounds like a route that we could get it in place, if not for this weekend, then pretty close, and I'd really support that.
We'll try.
Just quickly to ask on that, Fred, what kind of timescale would we be looking at to get that emergency TRO in realistically?
I think the first thing we need to do is to have words with KCC whether that will be allowed, because we've done it once in Folkestone. It's not something they're keen on, but it would require roughly about 2 weeks for them to sign and seal the order. We'll have to draft the experimental order, and as I said, we allow up to 18 months for the experimental order to be in place, and people can make objections to it for up to 6 months whilst we observe and monitor the traffic situation before we can make recommendations for the order to be made permanent. But it's something we can bring in the next 2-3 weeks if KCC gives us the permission to do that. But we have got powers to make experimental orders.
Thank you.
Right, Paul, any other items?
The item 6 on there, Beach Street, sort of at the bottom of the Stade. If anyone's got any questions there, I've tried to put in as the info there. If you haven't got the agenda up on there, it does say, despite the loading restrictions and dedicated loading bay, there are still issues with blue badge holders parking in the loading bay and making it impossible for businesses to load and unload without contravening. They're actually getting penalty charge notices issued to them. Therefore, changing the Beach Street area as a dedicated loading area would help that. So basically the whole area just becomes loading only.
No questions on that. Seems to be common sense more than something to question.
Thank you, Chair.
I totally agree with that, Paul. I totally agree with the process. But in terms of objection at that stage, is there going to be any equality impact stuff for people who wanted to go to the Stade and are currently finding it easy to park on a WL line there?
There's no WL lines in that area. What we've got is a loading bay, and the rest of it is a loading ban.
Right.
So there's no blue badge parking in that particular area on in Beach Street whatsoever. It's just that blue badge holders, a bit like wasps like around a jam jar, that they congregate to loading bays for some reason and park there. And that's the issue that we're having, is that they're parking there. They're getting issued to themselves because they're parking in a loading bay, which you're not allowed to do with a blue badge. But as I say, it's making owners of the businesses contravene whilst they genuinely have that need to load and unload.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Tim. And that's the last item.
Right. Thank you very much, Paul. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for taking part. It was a shock for me to be the chair. I did also get a apology from Councillor, where's my list come from here? Oh, Peter Osborne, who I can inform you is now the new Highways Cabinet member for KCC as of 1 o'clock today. So he's got a prior engagement from his older portfolio. But yep, thank you very much for attending, and look forward to the next meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
Cheers, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.